Hello everyone and welcome to the University of Arts London College of Fashion 2025 Fashion Business School postgraduate podcast sessions. These series of panel discussions have been driven and influenced by the exciting and topical fashion industry related subjects researched and delivered by our postgraduate master's programme students for their final major projects. They cover current and relevant themes shaping the wider fashion industry, such as global supply chains and policies, psychology in fashion, online environments and inclusivity, and the use of AI. We hope that you enjoy these sessions and thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome to the London College of Fashion. I'm Kirsty Nevett and today we're doing something a bit different and very exciting. We're showcasing 4 incredible master's projects from our postgraduate students at Fashion Business School, all exploring a theme that's shaping how we live, work and connect, online environments and inclusivity. And I have to say, when I first looked at these projects together, I was really struck with how differently each student approached this theme. We've got Nameera decoding why we can't stop buying beauty products after seeing them on TikTok, Dipali exploring what happens when physical stores and digital experiences merge. We're talking about fashion for disabled communities with Lillian, and whether fashion brands can actually use privacy as a competitive edge, research by Elsa. Here's why this matters now. We're living in this moment where online and offline aren't really separate anymore, right? Gen Z has never known a world without social media. We're shopping with AR try-ons in physical stores. Our dopamine responses are being literally triggered by algorithm-curated content. And meanwhile, huge questions about who gets included and who gets left out in these digital spaces are becoming even more urgent. These students aren't just studying trends. They're asking fundamental questions about power, access, emotion, privacy, and who these online environments are actually built for. So, here's how today is going to work. I'm going to introduce you to each student individually, and we're going to dive into their research, what they discovered, what surprised them, and why it matters. Then we're going to have a bit of a conversation together, and I'm hoping they'll start connecting dots between their different projects that maybe none of us saw coming. So let's start with the individual projects. First up, I want to talk about something you've probably experienced, but maybe you've never named. That feeling when you see a beauty product on TikTok, you buy it, and then what? Joy? Regret? Something more complicated? Meet Nameera. She's completed her MA in Strategic Fashion Marketing, and her project has one of the most intriguing titles I've ever seen. The Beauty Dopamine Effect, an exploratory study of how dopamine-triggering influencer content on TikTok and Instagram shapes post-purchase emotions and behaviour amongst Gen Z UK beauty consumers. Nameera, welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's lovely to have you, and I'm looking forward to diving into your project even more. So let's start here. What is this beauty dopamine effect? So walk us through what's actually happening in our brains when we're scrolling through beauty content.
So essentially, when you're watching beauty influencers, they do this multisensory content, which acts as visual proxies in your brain. So because you don't have physical trial in online space, beauty influencers exaggerate this, make this dramatic by using swatches, like makeup swatches, foaming cleansers, and in a way that the makeup is applied, it's very dopamine triggering. You feel like you almost crave it, like you crave food. When you watch like a food commercial, you crave the food. So you kind of crave the beauty product, right? So these are spiking the dopamine level because social media is based on reward-based schedules, and you don't know what's coming next. So you just keep scrolling and scrolling, and you get addicted to watching Get Ready With Me's, these ritualized content like self-care ASMR, and you get triggered in a way that subconsciously you do want to buy that product. And because the algorithm is so intuitive, it's going to keep repeating the exposure until you buy it. And my dissertation essentially explores what happens after you buy it, like how the customer feels about the influencer, how do they feel about the brand, and yeah, that's it.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I can deeply relate to that. So I'm definitely not Gen Z, as you may have noticed. So I'm 45. So I'm on the brink of a old millennial and a young Gen Xer. But I certainly identify with a lot of the things you're saying in terms of like, you're right, that kind of foaming cleanser, those kind of oil-based emulsion removers, like that kind of ASMR of the nails on the top of the lid. Amazing. So interesting. And when you compared it with food,
Yeah.
and like, is there anything better than going to a restaurant when they've got pictures of the food? I mean, my husband always says that's when it's not going to be the best restaurant, but I'm like, I love it. I like to see. I need to know. So, like, we've been really kind of picking up on some really interesting emotions, which is a really big part of my own personal research. And I wanted to ask you that you focus specifically on those kind of post-purchase emotions and behaviours. Tell me a bit more about what you discovered. So, were the UK Gen Z consumers feeling happy? Were they feeling what you expected them to feel? Were they feeling down? Tell me a little bit about what happens after these dopamine-driven purchases.
So the interesting fact was all of these consumers knew that influencers kind of manipulate you by using these proxies, the multisensory cues and everything. But they still managed to buy everything just because they were feeling left out and they were experiencing FOMO because the trend was so fleeting that they wanted to be a part of the community. And they realized that the dopamine fades after you buy the product once the product becomes like a staple in your day-to-day routine.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I've often thought about that with that lip stain. I mean, maybe I'm just too old now, but I look at that and think, I mean, I get it. I definitely like want to have a bit of lip colour on, you look more alive. But I wonder, like, it looks amazing in that kind of peeling off process, but when it lands in your makeup bag and it's just part of the everyday, the excitement goes. So, like, what's next? It's really interesting. I want to tap in more about inclusivity because I think it's a really interesting conversation within, obviously it's linked to our theme today, but also within beauty, and especially within the online environment. So who does this dopamine triggering content work for? And who might be left out or even harmed by it? So let's think about ethics for a wee while and what that means.
From my research, I got two types of consumers. The first consumer would be the novelty-seeking behavior consumer who are in chase of the dopamine rush again and again. So once they buy the product, the next product, they're going to buy a new one so they can experience the dopamine again. And the second consumer would be someone who buys the product and they love it so much that they will keep buying the same product. So it would be, like, ethically, it would be that you can't keep manipulating people to keep, like, buying new products again and again.
Yeah.
So it's like Gen Z is being manipulated to buy something that's out of consumption. Like, the consumption is so bad, it's not sustainable. And yeah, we do have to think about the sustainability of it all, that you don't need 3 types of cleansers. You don't need, especially if someone is, because Gen Z is still studying or maybe they just started working, they might not have the economical background to purchase these products that cost £70, £80. So
yeah, it's kind of troubling, I think. You know, there's a lot of research at the moment around neurodiversity, and we know that people with ADHD lack the kind of dopamine-producing hormone within their brains, so therefore are attracted to anything that gives that dopamine hit, which, right, social media does, but that purchase combined with the social media happens. And, you know, I'm fascinated by the ethical stance here, and you know, did that come up in your research at all?
it did. It was one of the key themes that I researched, that Gen Z is more likely to trust influencers and brands that share values, like ethical and moral values with them.
Yeah.
So it would be inclusivity, diversity, and political stance, like standing up for Gaza and Palestine. And the interesting thing was that they did not realize that influencers who were not supporting these causes when they paired up with the brands, they immediately broke trust with them because the trust was not broken when the product did not deliver. It was broken because of the ethical and moral issues that the influencers or the brands were standing up for or not standing up for.
Yeah. Yeah. So that actually the transparent element. I'm going to pick up on that again a bit later, actually, when we talk with Lillian, because I think that's a really fascinating side of it. And it's beyond just where's that product produced, but it's that kind of, the emotional economy, which we'll come back to. I'm really intrigued by the so what question. And I worked in beauty before, and I know what beauty brands are like. But yeah, it's a wonderful industry, but an incredibly successful industry. But really deeply complex and highly commercial. So if you could sit down right now with beauty brands and influencers, what would you tell them based on your research? If you were able to be completely and open and honest, what messages would you be delivering?
I would say be transparent, be honest, because consumers are so well versed with the digital environment now that they will see the sponsorship from miles away. Almost all of my participants said that they will scroll past the sponsored content unless the influencer already was using the product in their day-to-day routine, and it was well established that the product is already being used, and they had kind of proof that they had results from these products. So my advice would be to pair up with influencers that genuinely love your product and don't seem very commercialized and just like are mimicking like teleshopping, saying like just buy this, buy that. Instead, just be natural, be authentic. Like you're using this, tell us how did you use it? Show us like how was your discovery, like how was your results, like post and like before and after acne, before and after, like if you have hyperpigmentation, show us the results that
It's worked. Yeah.
it worked, and then maybe pair up with the influencers who the product worked on, and yeah, so the partnership would be very transparent, very honest, and not one off, instead like a long-term partnership. So you would pair with that influencer again and again to build that kind of community with them, instead of just using influencers just to gain the views and engagement rate. Like build brand loyalty instead of just one-off sales purchases as spikes.
Yeah, I think you're unbelievably right. There's the famous story of Zoella and Liz Earle. And Zoella is one of like the biggest YouTubers out there, millions of followers, millions of very connected viewership, which a lot of brands want to get on board with, right? And she, I'm sure, gets offered a lot of sponsorship deals. But the Liz Earle element is so powerful because she's used that since the beginning. So she started making YouTube videos and she loves it and she's always talked about it. And, it's not one of the most fashionable cleansers just now, but it's still in her routine. It's still something she talks about. So that partnership, work with what you love. It's like the number one kind of sales tactic. Sell something you're passionate about, sell something you believe in. And then it's got that longevity, which is much more sustainable, and you're not kind of chopping and changing contract. Yeah, I think that's actually interesting because there's that kind of consumer value of being served transparent messaging, but also there's great commercial value in what you're saying as well. Yeah. Very clever.
Just an interesting point to add. Yeah, all of my participants agreed that they do not remember the influencers' names. They will remember their faces, their content, but they will not remember the influencer's name unless they were following them for years since the YouTube era, because you mentioned it. Like if they were following like Nikki Tutorial, they would just know that Nikki Tutorial has been there like forever. So
she's been cutting our crease for years. That's not a new thing. You want someone to promote that product. She's the right person.
They will name those influencers. But when I asked the questions, can you name influencers who recommended you these products? And they were just stumped. They could not remember their names. And they were like, I can tell you what they look like and what color hair they have and everything, but I can't tell you the name.
So interesting.
Because it's just like because all of these brands are focusing on the sales rather than creating connection with the influencers and making them like a moderator between the consumers. So
fascinating, because we all know that sales are for ego and profits for sanity. Like it's how long you can sustain that. And when we know that we have to stop this mass consumption bubble, this mass consumption kind of like craziness, and start to be more conscious with our consumption, and more deliberate, then it's the brands that have got these relationships and are doing things right that are going to win out, and the rest will naturally follow and almost deserve to. Thanks, Nameera. I'm going to come back to your research in a wee bit more detail, but I think this idea of dopamine as a tool that can be triggered and directed, it's fascinating and frightening in equal measure. But it connects really nicely with some of the other projects. Talking of which, hi Lillian.
Hey.
So we've been talking about how online and offline environments are blending, but I want to shift now to this fundamental question. Who are these environments designed for in the first place? And more importantly, who is being excluded? So Lillian is completing her MA in Fashion Marketing and Global Cultures, and her project is called Imagination of Offline Adaptive Shopping Platform. This is about adaptive fashion creating genuinely inclusive places for disabled individuals. Welcome, Lillian.
Thank you.
So I want to start off with the problem to begin with. So let's start with a bit of a reality check. What are the current challenges that disabled individuals face when shopping for fashion, both online but also offline as well?
That's a great question. I would say there's a lot of different challenges, but the key thing was like, as our school is next to one of the biggest shopping mall in London, and I always wandering around there browsing different shop because I'm fashion lovers. So it's really important for me to check on the latest collection. So one thing I observe is that everyone are coming to the shopping mall. It's always crowded. It's always so busy. But it seems that there's a group of people that are missing, like weekdays and weekend. And I realized that, okay, it's gonna be the disabled user, especially talking about those physical disability. So I realized that maybe it's not accessible enough. What is the issue? And that's how I begin to my research. And this is really interesting because I want to find out the answer. And then realize that, okay, when it comes to the primary data collection, I be able to interview different peoples, including the founders of the adaptive fashion brand, which is specifically designed for the disabled group, and also the disabled fashion lover. Okay, they tell me a lot of insight and they're really useful. Some people said that imagine that all the clothing rack, they're so high. What if I was in a wheelchair? When I like hanging things and when I really interested to looking something, is that accessible for me? Is the corridor large enough for my wheelchair to access? And more importantly is that people always told me they want more design on clothing and also the product because they have the needs and they need special design, let's say the mana button for them to easily put on the clothes or jacket. But this type of design obviously not too common in most of the physical store or even online store. Okay, so it's really challenging no matter for the physical space or actually talking about the fashion item design themselves. So I would say it's a very all-rounded problem, but I would say the fundamental what caused to this is actually the attitude, how people think about the issues. If you think
Yes.
they're important,
Yes.
you're gonna include them. If you think they should be seen, you will try all the way to make them come to your physical store, or even you will think all the means to invite them to become part of your customer for your shop online stores. So there's a lot of challenge, I would say.
Yeah, you're right. It's hugely complex. So it's everything from those people in wheelchairs and your right access to be the garments that are kind of higher up. Those people perhaps using mobility scooters. You know, I've been in that situation myself in the past, and it's very embarrassing if your people are having to scuttle around you to move things out of the way. You just want to be shopping unaided, as if
Exactly.
in the same way as you could if you didn't have that device with you. It's even mums shopping the children, like not being able to get a buggy around a shopping centre.
Exactly.
You know, if the lifts are off and how far you have to walk to try and navigate round, or figuring out where those routes are. I think what a lot of certainly the incumbent businesses will struggle with is how much there is to consider. And that's only the physical things that we're seeing, those physical challenges. There's then all the neurodiverse challenges and mental health challenges that some people are just unable to shop in busy shopping environments like Westfield, Stratford cities you've talked about, which is really interesting. And I think, yeah, there's so much to consider. So let's break this down a little bit. I was really intrigued by what you were saying about adaptive fashion, because I was watching the most recent series of the Great British Sewing Bee. And it was brilliant because they had a whole adaptive fashion week. And I learned so much about understanding. I had done it before for children, but not thinking about adults, and like kind of the longer central back seams are needed, and elastic in areas, and be able to unzip and re-zip up trousers and skirts. It was really, really interesting. So looking at research, Lillian, can you explain what adaptive fashion is for listeners that might not be familiar? Because part of this is about getting the narrative going, right?
Yeah, sure. So adaptive fashion basically, in other words, accessible fashion. It means that people they may have special needs on a more comfortable, soft material. So the time when they put on them, they will really feel embracing themselves. And it could also means special design like the zips and the buttons that we just mentioned. So it will overall make them feel convenient and easy to put on. So people, especially those with a missing lips, they really need this type of design to help them to make it more easier. So basically, it's like from the design itself, it needs to be accessible.
Yeah, interesting. And so where is the fashion industry at the moment in terms of providing these options? Is it exploring them, or is it very much the beginning? What's your viewpoint?
You might put it into in other words.
So yeah, like how well do you think brands are responding to adaptive fashion? Are they listening? Are they doing things, or is it just like, oh, I think this could perhaps maybe work?
That's a really, really good question. I would say to answer this question, we can think about two aspects, the design and also the marketing campaign. Because marketing campaign is always the first thing get into people's eyes rather than the design itself. And that's why we need advertisement, we need campaigns, we need events and activities, and even the visual elements like video and photos. I would say in my research, because I try to understand different brands and how different countries are approaching these topics, especially adaptive fashion, I would say UK is the best. And this is not my objective opinion. Like some of my participants for the interviews, they also hold the same opinion in that the UK are doing a great job. We have Primark, we have Mars Spencer, we have the Able Label, a lot of different brands. They are aiming to provide a lot of fashionable items for different scenarios from office to daily life. Like they're trying to provide more fascinating options for the disabled people. And also, meanwhile, apart from the design, they are also putting effort on taking very nice photo. What means by nice photo, right? So they actually put on very colorful, very cute clothes with very nice pattern and cutting. Yet everyone have a very, very beautiful smiles. It's really touching people's heart, you know. So I would say in the UK, they're doing a good job. And also in, if I remember correctly, 2023 London Fashion Week, they also include the adaptive fashion brand Unhidden to showcase the collections. So I would say more channels are being approached to promoting adaptive fashion. But probably because it's still very new, especially for the fashion industry, it kind of takes time. But at least it's already developing.
Big retailers are doing it. I think so inspiring, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they are.
interesting. And, you know, it's getting people to talk. We're not sitting here saying this is easy, you know, but I think it's really exciting. Like we've got Strictly Come Dancing on at the moment, and there's somebody with Down syndrome. The community is so excited about seeing Ellie dancing and being able to exist and live and thrive in
Right.
competition with everybody else. It's about just giving everyone the same chance.
Yes,
Is
100%.
that kind of equality versus equity kind of discussion that goes on, right? Thank you. That's really interesting. I want to now think about your solutions. So, say you're imagining an offline adaptive shopping platform. What would that look like for you? So, within a physical store, How would you kind of approach that, and how would you collaborate with the disabled community?
Yeah. So imagine that when we talk about shopping, offline shopping platform, people always think about shopping malls, but I would say shopping malls is really high cost. So the solution is like market, like food market, vintage market that we can see everywhere. So a market, imagine that a lot of different brands, styles, and even product, they are welcome because this is what makes a market. It could be very diverse, various. So as a market, we invite different adaptive fashion brands and also non-adaptive fashion brands, but those who support diversity, they are also very welcome to showcasing the latest collection in the market. Because currently, as I search online, I try to type offline adaptive fashion market or offline accessible fashion market. I actually find nothing. So I feel like it would be great that if we can host a market together, all the brands together for the disabled people when they come to shopping. It's gonna be way more easier because imagine that you can buy everything at the same spot. You can get things going to the gym. You can get things for a cocktail party. Literally everything gonna be so easy, convenience, and I want it to be accessible not only about the design but also the way how they can purchase. I believe this will make them feel more interesting in fashion because most of the time when we talk about fashion, it feels like it's a privilege. It's a privilege for a certain group of people, especially those seems to have a very nice body, those classic model body shape. But I would say having a different body shape or even different physical health condition, it only means a very diverse life experience. And all this type of situation or bodies, they're worth celebration. They're worth to be seen. And that's why I feel like having market like this and doing different collaboration with different brands, launching new design or with a certain theme will probably attract people to learn about the topics more, not just educate the disabled people that you are part of the fashion, but also educate the non-disabled to understand that the world is for everyone.
So amazing. I love the idea of this market with this kind of hub of a celebrated community that can learn from each other as well. And yeah, bringing in those non-adaptive brands to kind of understand the community better, to find out what they can do to serve. I think, yeah, and everything that you've mentioned, from having kind of quieter shopping times for those with neurodiversity, for instance, would be really fantastic, to have like other times that are suitable for other parts of the market, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just, I think there's a lot that can be done, and I think that's what your research felt very practically led. So this project that you've done, Lillian, is about fashion, but it raises much bigger questions around inclusive design in all commercial spaces. What do you hope people take away from your research?
My research is not just a dissertation, it's actually a practice-based project. So the platform called He's Your World, His is actually spelled as Hesed, is a Hebrew word. It means kindness, loving kindness. I hope people can have a right attitude, an attitude with kindness, with goodness, to understand different people's experience. So I feel like fashion is just one of the very important channels to promote beauty diversity. But the most key takeaway is that diversity is good, and all types of diversity worth celebration. That's the key thing.
Amazing. That's beautiful. I think this idea of designing with communities rather than for them, like that kind of collaborative approach, that's the thread I really wanted to explore with this conversation. So you've led me really nicely into this next element as well. So I thought it'd be really nice to start to bring your two projects together and see where these kind of obvious connections, or maybe non-obvious connections, exist between what you're looking at. So let's dive in. So first of all, can I start with something really struck me across all the projects, which was control? So Nameera, you're talking about brands and algorithms that control our dopamine. And Lillian, your project is partly about disabled individuals taking back control over their shopping experiences. So here's my question. In these online and hybrid environments that you're studying, who has control and who should have it? Nameera?
I think the control right now is with the algorithm and the platforms, to be honest, because all of my participants said that the algorithm knows them better than themselves, which is kind of surprising because, they were so afraid to mess the algorithm up. We don't engage with the content that we don't resonate with because we don't want to mess up our algorithm because it shows us what we want to be shown.
So interesting.
And yeah, so I feel like the power is with the algorithm right now, but it should be with the consumers because it should be with it should be the consumer's choice rather than subconsciously integrating these ideas in their head that they need so many products when you don't actually need all of these products.
Absolutely. Interesting. Lillian, what about you?
I couldn't agree more with you. I feel like the control should be in the consumer because imagine that consumer is the one who's browsing the design, browsing videos.
Yeah.
Most importantly, consumer is the one who is spending the money
That's true.
to support the whole things to keep running, right?
Yeah,
So I feel
that is
like
so
why
true.
not, right? Consumers really should have a stronger power on expressing what they want and what this will be like, especially about fashion.
This is why we're in education, listening to the two of you that are going to go out and make the world a better place, and your colleagues that I spoke to earlier, is just very inspiring and very much feeds our purpose here as a college. But here's a tension that I'm noticing that I want you to both to kind of play with. So on one hand, digital and online environments, they promise inclusivity. So accessibility, personalization through said algorithms, cookies, etc. And by reaching the ability to reach more people. But on the other hand, they create new barriers and new forms of exclusion. So Lillian, this is really central to your work, but I'm also curious to think, Nameera, what does dopamine triggering content, does that affect everybody equally, or have we got any sort of paradox with inclusivity from that perspective?
I mean, it would kind of depend on the consumer's mindset, to be honest. Like, how much do you want to take the content, like dopamine triggering content in? It would be like similar to watching a Netflix series. And do you want to watch everything in a go, or do you want to like split the episodes up and then watch one episode a day?
Oh, I've got a 6-year-old. Like, I can't, I'm lucky to watch one episode. We're all about the 29-minute ones.
So the consumption also would differ on the person's mindset because I had participants saying that they were logical when it came to buying things. They would do their own research and not just take the influencer's word or the brand's word for it. They would like check the skin tone types and like the complexion. They would check if that suits their skin, and they would just go to more credible influencers like dermatologists and then check if the ingredients are right for the skin.
Yeah.
And then they would buy the products. But then I had other consumers who just said like, oh my god, she is like the prettiest person I've ever seen, so let's just buy because I want to look like her.
Oh, I think we can all relate to that. That's what marketing does, right? If you think about Eva Herzegovina and Hello Boys for Wonderbra advert, Kate Moss in Calvin Klein, the supermodels for Versace. It's all about that kind of, I want to be that person, so I want to emulate that, and anything I can do to buy into that.
So true.
I'm going
And
to.
contrasting insight was that few of the influencers said that because they were so insecure about some of their, facial features, like hooded eyes or maybe acne, and if something was not promoted in a right way, that they would just disengage entirely because it made them feel bad about themselves, that they can't ever change something that's so physically, permanent, that they don't want to engage with that influencer or the brand again.
Oh, that's so interesting. And yeah, really sad. What about you, Lillian? What's your view on this one?
I think that's so true that consumer, they always have their critical and independent thinking when it comes to choose what they truly want. And I feel like it's actually very important because although like we just mentioned, marketing has a lot of function. It could be served as a educational tool, it could be a promotional tool. We can even shape a certain concept into the things we want. I would say it's quite a powerful thing. But I also agree that whenever there's a very strong conscience on our consumer, they can always make the right decision and they can always tell what is the authentic things, what is the truth, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, a lot of what you're talking about is becoming quite deeply psychological, but I think there's also an awareness in the consumer perspective
Mm-hmm.
as well as the brand perspective. So this is where I kind of want to tap into the emotional economy. So Nameera, your project is literally about emotions, those kind of post-purchase
Yeah.
emotions triggered by the dopamine. But actually those emotions run through both of your projects. So Lillian, like this kind of idea of frustration and dignity, they're deeply emotional. So are we living in this emotional economy as I'm describing, where brands and platforms are deliberately managing our feelings? And if so, I see you both nodding. What does that mean for how we protect ourselves?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe I can answer the first half. First, I think emotional economy is really something. I can raise a very famous example you guys all know, Pop Mart Labubu.
Yeah.
It's super emotional. Obviously, at the very beginning, everyone thought that this type of store they only targeting children, kids, or okay, teens. But turns out when you look at the queue, wow, there are adults or even people in the middle age, and you can realize that why even people who already an adult with a proper job or have a lot of things, they're still so into Labubu, adore with different emotions, different colors, different outfit. I would say because it's really emotion.
So,
It helps people escape from the real world. It gives people feel comfortable. It makes you happy. It makes you smile. This is
That is
so
so
emotional. It's not rational at all. And I always see people
So
buying
true.
a lot.
yeah, especially when people buying them on the black market because they were out of stock and they were buying it for £100.
It's like sought after brands have got this
Yeah.
Labubu attached. I mean, you're right, but I think you're tapping on something really interesting. This is my area of subject expertise. I'm fascinated by the emotional economy, but yeah, thinking about that whole like protective zone that you go back to as a child, where it's innocent and the world is a happy place and nasty things don't happen. And it's just, yeah, it's that kind of yearn for nostalgia as well, back to a time where things maybe felt better. Not for everybody, but yeah, that's a really interesting point about the boo boo. What do you think, Nameera?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting because I see the same similar trend in beauty industry because there's lots of pop-ups going on and they have like these arcade games where you can the claw machine and everything where you can play it for a freebie.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting because that taps into the nostalgia of you being a kid and then just grabbing something that you want and like obviously going to win because it's a pop-up, unlike the arcade games that just take your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's actually so true that you mentioned. And social media actually works on the same kind of frequency because it's developed on the reward-based interval schedule, which is actually similar to the gaming mechanics, like, the gambling thing, slot machine.
Yeah.
And the rush of the sound actually gives you more excitement. So from a neurological perspective, dopamine is the anticipation of the reward rather than the reward itself. It's the excitement that you're going to get this reward rather than having the reward.
Fascinating. Yeah. So actually the achievement of it is almost, it's the last thing that's really important is the process of going through, which is frightening and yeah, food for thought, certainly. On that note, my last big question, because I could talk to both of you happily all afternoon. I really enjoyed your conversations and it's so nice seeing you both bounce off each other. But before we wrap up, I want to think forward. So it's 2030, we're 5 years from now. These online environments, these hybrid spaces, these digital experiences, what do you hope has changed? And what do you fear might get worse?
You want to go first?
Yes. I really like one of the words you mentioned from your sharing, being authentic. I feel like right now we have so many AI
That's so true.
generate photos, videos. I feel like that's always my worries. Even right now, I look at those poses. It takes me few seconds to think about, is that generated by AI or generated by the user from real life. I'm really afraid that very soon, after 5 years, I couldn't tell what is true and what is fake. But hopefully, I hope people can use AI to bring us to a more fantasy world that is different from reality, but still you can immediately tell it's fake. That's the things that I hope I can see. So I would say there's pros and cons. It really depends on people's
Such a good
intention,
point.
how they use it, right? It's not always about the two, it's always about people's ambition and their intention.
Yeah, that's so
Nameera?
true. I mean, I agree with her because we don't need to be perfect in a way that like it's idealized. Like that kind of perfectionism, I feel like it has a negative impact on people's mental health
It does.
because all of these supermodels and all of these celebrities, they have so much treatment, like beauty treatment going on that you don't realize what's happening behind the scenes. So it's really, I mean, it's really great if people would be authentic in the future and they would just say like, oh my God, I had this treatment done, I had this done, or that would, I feel like that would just bring those people together, rather than just having this kind of negative effect on the mental health that we can never achieve that because
Yeah, I think sometimes saying I want to be taken away to a fantasy and let's do something that's crazy weird and different, but also like I need to know what's real, what's true, what's right.
yeah,
It's grounding, isn't it?
Mm.
That sounds like a nice world to exist in. I love that thought. Thank you so much. We've covered so much ground today, from dopamine and neuroscience to adaptive design, from filmmaking to data privacy, from physical retail to third spaces. And what's become really clear to me on a bit of reflection is that when we talk about online environments and inclusivity, we're not just talking about technology or digital platforms. We're talking about power, emotions, access, creativity, privacy, but ultimately what it means to build spaces, whether they're online, offline, or somewhere in between. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Nameera and to Lillian, and also to Dipali and Elsa. Thank you for sharing your research and your insights and your visions for these more inclusive environments. These aren't just academic projects, although I know they've been months of very hard work. They're blueprints for how we might build a better, fairer, and more human-centred system in fashion, retail, media and beyond. I'm Kirsty Nevett. Thank you for listening.